So we are in a series called the Passion Series. And so my goal is to stir up some passion in you. And that's our title. I'm providing... I was doing a thing here, and all right, it was too spontaneous. Anyway, I'm passionate about spontaneous moments. What are you passionate about? Where does passion exist in your life? Or where did it used to exist? And passion is a powerful thing. We love it. We need it. And the dictionary tells us that passion is a strong feeling of enthusiasm about something or doing something. So it's about something, or it's a passion about doing something. And your passion could be your career. It could be your family. It could be something, a goal, a health. It could be a ministry or a cause or a calling or your art. Something that you're passionate about. And what we forget about is that passion, the nature of passion, is that there is one level of intensity with passion, but it tends to fade, no matter what. And so we can manage and direct our passion. And there's a lot of thinking in our world today that it's like, well, I don't feel passionate about that anymore. So I'm going to do something different. And so we want to talk to you about the significance of passion. And I just want to speak to the passion inside you. I want to stir it up. And I just pray that over the next few weeks here in the month of October that you will find new passion for things that really make a difference in life. And we are followers of Jesus Christ. We're believers. And if you are a follower of Jesus, do you know what he's passionate about? If you think about it, what he's passionate about, we should be passionate about. If we're followers of him. It doesn't mean you can't be passionate about other things. You don't have to just be passionate about one thing. But what Jesus is passionate about, we definitely should be passionate about. So, gotcha. I'm being silly. We got an artist in our church. I suspect we've got a lot of them. But Jerry Rodriguez is an artist, and I just feel like there's more we should do with art. And I just think, just like we do music that inspires faith and honors God, I just would like to see more artists in our church celebrated using their gifts. But anyway, Jerry did a series of paintings that was kind of based on some graffiti ideas from a well-known graffiti artist. And so he did some things about Jesus. So I liked this one he did about, it's sort of like an Instagram of Jesus. So take a look at this. So here's Jesus, and there are people who make comments about Jesus, and there's lots of people who like Jesus, but there's no followers. And sometimes that's the way it is in our world. Sometimes that's the way it is in church. We like things that he says, but we're not really followers. We're not passionate about what he's passionate. We like certain things. We like the stuff about peace. We like the stuff about being kind. And those are good. But a follower is, tell me more. I want to do what you do. I want to do what you want me to do. It's a follower. So let's be passionate about what Jesus is passionate about. So, there's one more. Another one, I think he has some of his paintings out in the lobby on display so you could look at them. But here's a second one. This is the in case of emergency Jesus. So, you just keep him back there behind the glass where he doesn't bother anybody. And then when you get an emergency, just break the glass. Jesus, help me. Jesus, take the wheel. That's the spare tire Jesus. So Jesus was passionate about God's house. He was passionate about the church. And that's something that we could be passionate about. In the Gospel of John, it tells us where Jesus walks toward the temple, and there's an outer area before you come in. And look what happens in John chapter 2. It says, in the temple area, Jesus saw merchants selling cattle and sheep and doves for sacrifices. And he also saw dealers, because they were blackjack and Texas Hold'em or something, at the tables exchanging foreign money. Jesus made a whip from some ropes and chased them all out of the temple. He drove out the sheep and the cattle and scattered the money changers and coins over the floor and turned over the tables. Where was that whole peace talk he just gave? Then going over to the people who sold doves, he told them, get these things out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace. Then his disciples remembered this prophecy from the scripture. Passion for God's house will consume me. Jesus was passionate about the church. He was passionate about God's house. Now, one thing that we need to understand is, and this is my assessment, that a lot of the times people talk about passion today, it's like that is the driving force. That is the main thing, passion. And I think it's a mistaken perspective of what passion is all about. And so I have this little diagram or graphic up here. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so there is a graphic coming up any day now, and it's a perspective. There we go. And it starts with passion. And then passion, you say, well, I haven't found what I'm passionate about. Or I'm going to discover what I'm passionate about. So then you get passion. Then you get engagement. Then you get commitment. And that brings momentum and achievement. And then you have this experience of a successful life or a successful goal or whatever it might be. So the problem with this is that if you don't get passionate about something, you got no direction. You don't get engaged in anything. You don't get committed to anything. And so sometimes people just, they get excited about something. I'm passionate, then the passion goes, and then they're done. That's what happens every January at the gym. I'm passionate about getting in shape. If I can get in shape in the next 15 days, I'm in. And it usually takes a little more. It takes like 17 or 18. And so the problem is it sets us up as a people who don't know how to push through pain. Because the things that matter, there are difficulties that come. There are setbacks. There are pushbacks in life. And it'll drain some passion. And people, they talk about passion like it's the total thing. So somebody might just be totally inappropriate and go, I know, I'm sorry. I get so aggressive. I get so angry. It's just like, I'm just passionate. So passion is the key thing. So here is an alternative view that I'm suggesting to you. And that is this one, that it starts with engagement. You get involved, then you get committed, and passion is a result of that engagement and commitment. And passion feeds achievement and momentum, and then you experience this success in whatever area that you're pursuing. And that way, if your passion is fading, you go back and you work on this engagement and commitment. You figure out what it is that you're doing that's not working, and you get recommitted. And you just adjust that so that, because you know, I got to get this passion going. That's why the Apostle Paul told Timothy, fan the flame that's on the inside of you. Because there's a gift in you, and there's a calling, and fan that flame. Get passionate. Be committed to what God is doing in your life. And so I was reading about King David in 1 Chronicles 29:3. And he says, because I have set my affection on the house of my God, I've given to the house of God. And then he describes, this is when his son Solomon was now going to build this amazing temple that was to honor God. And David said, because I've set my affection on the house, I'm going to get above and beyond. I'm going to lead in this thing. And so I'm not preparing to receive an offering or something. I'm just telling you that his engagement and his commitment fueled his passion. I've set my affection on the house of God, so I'm going to be part of the answer. I'm going to be praying. I'm going to be building it up. I'm going to be dedicated to it. And it is something that our God is passionate about. Our Jesus, the one we follow, is passionate. See, I often challenge people. I kind of stumbled on this about 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember. But I just started challenging people when they say, I love the church and how can I get involved or what should I do next or whatever it is. And so I say, give Oasis Church a year. Give Oasis Church 1 year. Starting from first Sunday in October 2017, give it a year. October 2018. What year is this? This podcast is going to last a long time. It's 2016 or 17. You got it. So to give it a year. But not just come sit and observe occasionally or every once in a while, but get engaged, get committed, and see what happens. So it's like get involved in connect groups or serve or be a giver and learn the worship songs, and sing, and then here's the thing. October next year, if you don't have better friendships and relationships, if you don't have a stronger faith, you're not more familiar with the voice of God, you're not clearer on God's purpose, then you should find another church. I would, and I'm the pastor. So what I've heard from people over and over, more than anything, is that people say, I was there one Sunday, because I don't just do it in October, I do it whenever I can't think of it. But just go, and they said, when you said give it a year, I did, and my marriage is stronger, and this is happening, and God opened this door. And so if you don't come to Oasis, when you go back to your church, do that with your church. So it's not me about trying to get you here, but that's what works, is what you get engaged and committed. And so that recipe works for marriage. You get engaged, you get committed, marriage is a commitment, and then that drives the passion. And then the point is, when you struggle with the passion or you're frustrated, then you go back and you work on the engagement. You work on the commitment. It's like, what did we do to get to this place where that's what we wanted? And so when we do that, passion follows. And we've been married for 30 years. 30 plus years. And we have had a few times where we're just like, okay, this is not fun. And so we go back and we work on what brought us together. And she's like, I didn't marry you so you could preach me personal sermons. I married you because of what an amazing kisser you are, and how how much fun we have together, whatever it is. So we adjust it. So that's where the passion is so crucial. And here's the thing. Here's why I say give it a year. Because you'll come to church and volunteers are friendly and the sermon is great and the worship is good. And then a couple months later, maybe you run into a volunteer and they're struggling. People worship God up here not because everything's perfect in their life. They've all got their own battles. and they're worshiping God. You might go, oh, I wish my life was like theirs. Maybe. But one thing you would want is to be able to worship God in the middle of the tough times, you know. But then it's easy to get, but it's like, well, this church is not a very friendly church. But if you set your affection on the house, what do? You go, I'm going to be praying for that prayer. They must have been through, how are you doing? You know, like you start serving them. And, you know, when the pastor gets up there and can't remember what year it is, you're praying for him and not going, I'm out of here. Because I'll make mistakes. It just happens because we're all human beings. But it's like, set your affection on the house, on the church. And it's amazing. I read this quote, and I thought it fit here. It's by that famous guy. We've read his quotes a lot. His name is Anonymous. I think he was a Greek or Latin guy back then. But it says, if the church wants a better pastor, it only needs to pray for the one it has. Oh, yeah. Pray for me. Holly's going, amen, pray for him. So one of the things that we're talking about that we can be passionate about in the church, in the house of God, is community. And what we're talking about with community is about relationship and friendship. And see, we were all created to belong, with a desire to belong. We want to belong with God, and we want to belong with others. That's how you know God, it matters to God. He's passionate about it. Jesus is passionate about community because you see it through all of his teaching. And we're created, there's a few basic human needs that keep us healthy in our mind and our soul. And it's things like food and shelter and safety. And, there's just a couple others, but one of them is a sense of belonging. And we find a place, we may not call it that, but we gravitate toward something that we can belong to so that somebody knows us and we know them. And sometimes people go, no, I don't need to belong anything. I'm one of those individual rebels, and we don't need that. It's like, we who? All the other individual rebels that you belong to? So there is something, community means I'm somebody's friend. I'm somebody's son. I'm somebody's sister. I'm somebody's spouse. I'm a teammate. I'm part of the group. It's a community that's smaller in a bigger population. So we're part of the big global church, the body of Christ, but we demonstrate that dedication by being a part of the local church. And community that's why we do some of the things that we do. It's like we encourage people to go from a bigger gathering into smaller gatherings so that it's volunteering, it's serving, it's going to a small group or a connect group or attending a class, or you're just finding ways. And it's not just making up stuff, but it's ways to help us get healthy and that we belong and we have a sense of community. And that's so valuable. There's a man, Robert D. Putnam, who is a professor at Harvard. Okay, I read people who are professors at Harvard. So, at least this article. And he did some study and research on the impact of community in our physical health and emotional health. And he's written some papers on it, and it has a big impact on our health, physically, so in our body and in our soul. And in this study, he's saying, if you're not part of a community and that you get involved in a community, if you do just that, your physical health would improve over the next year. In fact, this is where it says, if you made no other changes this year other than one, and that is getting involved in a healthy community of people, then you could cut your odds of dying in the next year in half. Is that amazing? John Ortberg, this great pastor up in Northern California, when he read that, he's like, okay, let's call our small group slogan this year, join or die. And they're like, no, let's not do that. Let's have a more positive approach. But the point is you connect with people and there's a help. Then the soul part of it, the emotional part of it is really interesting. Dr. Henry Cloud is a Christian psychologist. He's a writer. I've read a number of his books. He's a great communicator. And he told of a test that this psychology department conducted. And so they would get volunteers. They would test their stress level and get a baseline. And so then they would hook up this machine and they go, okay, then in the next 10 seconds, you're going to feel a mild electrical shock. And it turns out it wasn't as mild as they said, like all doctors. You're going to feel a little pressure. So they got a shock. But during that 10 seconds, they didn't know what to expect. So the stress level goes way up. So the second phase is they brought in somebody. And they said, this person, they don't know them. They're going to sit there in a chair next to you, and they'll be with you. And so in 10 seconds, you'll feel this little. So no change in the stress level, up. And then they had orchestrated ahead of time to have a good friend of the volunteer for the test to come. And so they brought them in, and they sat down with them and held their hand and said, in 10 seconds, you're going to feel a little shock. That the stress level went down to no shock level. And so the fact was, when there's somebody that you know and somebody that knows you that you engage with, it brings a peace, a healthiness in our soul. And so that's why we do what we do. That's why we encourage you to be a part of community. And here's an interesting thing with it. We struggle sometimes in getting in community because of things we've been through, hurts or experiences or all these things that we encounter in life. And so we let that be the ceiling for us rather than pushing through. And then even when we do connect, things happen. One of the biggest enemies of community is the lack of unity. So in a community of people, usually you got a goal, you got a vision. And so when you get two visions, there's division. And so healthy community, there's unity in it. And in a church, unity is so important. Disunity in relationships is like inviting chaos in. It's like throwing the door open. It's like, I'm uncomfortable talking about it, so just drop it, and you stay in quiet disunity. And spiritually speaking, the Bible teaches us that where there's division, the enemy can come in and make things worse. So I'm encouraging today, be passionate about community, be passionate about unity, and see what God could do in you and through you. And let passion be a monitor. So when you get nervous or afraid, then what's happening to that passion? Let's go back to the engagement and commitment. What do we need to do to free us up to bring that trust level?